Thank you. We will move on to committee reports. Legislative update, Mrs. Gundrum.
Okay, so I got an email today, actually, and Brian forwarded it to me too, so thank you, that the State House had approved HB 96, which is the part of the biennial budget, and I didn't have a whole lot of time to look over all the changes, but I did notice a few. There were some changes to, let's see, it says modifies the requirement that the County Budget Commission reduce school district property tax rates based on the district's carryover balance by increasing the threshold from 25 to 30% of the previous fiscal year. I don't know how that all translates, but we did get, with this email that we got from ohioschoolboards.org, they included like some rough numbers, and it looked like it might change our funding like by like 0.04% or something. So,
But the hard part there, and let's let Mrs. Lee speak to that, the hard part is the immediate reduction in funds that they're talking about pooling away from us.
Right, so we have, if you look at the projections, they're projecting a very moderate increase in the state funding, but the big issue is the 30% carryover of cash. I believe 485 districts have more than 30% carryover in cash. There's probably several reasons for that. Some districts, to Billy's point earlier today, are saving up for maybe a construction project or a curriculum adoption or something significant that they've been reserving money so they can do. Number two is you had ESSER funds for all those years, so a lot of districts reserved their general fund so that they didn't have to go back to the levy, to the voters for a levy. And because they did that, now they might have reserves of higher than 30%. And so the state legislature is calling to rake those back. It'll appear as a line item reduction on a taxpayer's tax bill. And the description of the line is going to say something close to a one-time reduction of your tax bill due to your local school district's cash reserves being too high. So you're going to get this bill in January, and then the district's going to come and ask you for a levy in May, right after you saw in your bill you have too much in cash. So it presents a lot of challenges to any school district when you get the bulk of your funding twice a year. Usually February, March, usually September, October. So if you're not going to get your money till September, October, you probably should have some reserves there in June to pay payroll in July and August, maybe. So I'm not sure what the legislature's thinking. There's not a ton of detail that we've seen yet. I think we have signed up for a webinar on the 22nd that we're hoping for some clarification about how the calculations will be made. But what I'm reading is it's going to be based on your 5-year forecast. So when you close your books in June, the treasurer will have to certify, I assume it's going to be the treasurer, it could be the board, that these really are your balances and this is your 5-year forecast, and that rake back will occur. The county budget commission will have to meet in August to determine what the rake back will be that'll be applied to your January tax bills.
I am really grateful that you were on top of all that, because I was afraid to put you on the spot and ask you what it meant.
Yeah.
But I do have a question, though, since we were talking about that. So, in the event that a district does pass a levy, doesn't their cash balance go up after that too? So it's like the state is punishing you for then passing a levy?
Correct, because then you'll get it raked back because your collections are usually higher. So I think in my head, what a district will do is reduce your millage and make anticipate that you're going to have to continue to go back to the ballot on a regular basis. Instead of thinking a levy is going to last 5 to 10 years, you're probably looking at a levy lasting 2 to 3 because you can't keep more than 30% in cash on any given June 30th. The other question, and I have not been able to find it in anything that I've read, is whether that's just cash or whether it's unencumbered cash. So if you have purchase orders at the end of the year that haven't paid out, but you've already incurred that obligation. So think of utilities. You've turned your lights on, you've turned your air conditioning on, you've turned your heats on in the month of June, but I haven't paid that bill yet. is that in my cash balance, or do I get to reserve that to pay existing obligations? I have not seen where they speak to that, or how that calculation, what it's actually going to include or not include.
I got a
If I could-
question.
Go ahead.
So if we're below 30% over, we won't get penalized.
You won't get the rake back, correct?
So
We're at 40.
would it be smart for us to get below 30%?
It's hard to say that, actually, because you don't want to just waste the money. I think you're going to have a lot of school districts that will try to find, maybe expedite projects, so that if we know we need buses, maybe we're going to go to bid in May instead of going to bid in August. But again, that would be a purchase order, and if they're not going to count purchase orders against your cash, I just think once we see the webinar on the 22nd for the May board meeting, when we do the 5-year forecast on May 15th, we'll have a lot more answers as to what that may or may not look like.
If I could just say a few things. So I've participated, most of my morning this morning was involved in these discussions, and Mrs. Lee, thank you for capturing all that, to the best that we can, right? I can tell you, big picture, this is not good for public education in general, and not just Fairfield. I encourage people to research, take the time to research what is happening, and I will wish you luck as you do that. Because you cannot get a clear picture. No one is able to say what is going to happen. So here we are, just a little over a month away from a very important 5-year forecast for us, and everything is murky. We have no idea. Just to your point, Mike, that was a question. That's a topic that people have been discussing. But we don't know what's actually going to happen, with that carryover. And then what is the perception then if districts do decide to spend X amount of money to ABC, whatever that ABC is, but then they're going to be on the ballot sooner rather than later. That's what every district is facing, is being on the ballot sooner rather than later. We all know that school levies are very difficult to pass right now with the economy, inflation, and all the things. So, again, encourage everyone to take the time to research it. It's not easy, it's complex. I don't even think some people who are making these decisions really understand the impact that some of these things will make on public education. The original budget bill coming from the governor, there was a lot of outrage on that, and it got tweaked. And if you look at a certain simulation, you may think it's better, but this carryover was not part of the original budget bill. So it actually, long-term, makes it worse for us and many others. So it's just very difficult to explain. It's frustrating for everyone. Again, I encourage everyone to do the research. Gina is working, taking, just as we did with the budget bill, and I sent that letter to you, a sample letter to you to send to state legislators. We will be doing that again with what has recently happened with the House, and we will try to capture the impact that it has on our district specifically, because I do think that's what they need to hear, what it does in our district, and specifically our students. As districts continue to struggle with these levy discussions, when you face financial difficulties, eventually it's going to filter down to student opportunities.
That's correct.
And that is at the heart of this. At some point, I do believe that there will be some great awakening. At some point, there has to be. Districts try so hard to stay off the ballot. And now you're talking about a carryover penalty that's going to force you to go on the ballot sooner rather than later. Those districts that have that carryover, many of them they're trying to stay off the ballot.
Right.
But now it's going to force them to go on sooner rather than later. So there's a lot to digest there.
Now, Amy, I read somewhere on some of those emails we get, did they reduce the 5-year budget to 3-year?
In the bill, if it passes, instead of a 5-year forecast, you'll do a
Is that
3-year
better for
forecast.
us?
It doesn't matter. I
Doesn't
mean,
matter.
It's probably a little easier to try to project out, but the numbers don't change.
Right.
It's just sad and unfortunate, the disconnect from government.
So I do want to say, like, no other government in the budget bill is having the same cap on their cash reserves. So cities don't have to have a cap, counties don't have a cap, the state doesn't have a cap, libraries, nobody else but public
Public schools.
schools. Private schools, colleges, universities, they can all have as much cash as they want. But a public school can only carry over 30%.
So it's as if they're connecting dots that don't exist. It's as if they're saying they're taking heat for these property tax increases, right? And then they're saying, who gets the largest chunk of property taxes? Schools. So they benefited from those property taxes, and we need to pull it back. But the facts are, we didn't collect one extra penny from property tax increases.
Yep.
We did not benefit like so many of the other districts, and again, we could go down lots of rabbit holes this evening. You're gonna get into talk about the 20 mil floor. That's why we didn't benefit like so many other districts did. There's now serious discussion about that being eliminated. Today, someone suggested that might be a last-minute addition to this budget bill that will not be official until like last minute to add it in at the very end. There's a lot of speculation. That's not factual.
We-
So the way it's written to the 30% rake back, the county can rake that back, and actually your effective millage can, as a result of that rake back, drop below 20 mils. So the 20 mil floor doesn't apply to the rake back. So even if you're at the floor, if you have more than 30%, they'll reduce your millage for the next year below 20 mils in order to give that rebate.
So if we went below 20 mil, does that mean we'd get more property tax like the other districts?
So when you're at the 20 mil floor, you get growth, so the House Bill 920 reduction factors, you can't, the state has said historically that a school district cannot tax themselves less than 20 effective mills. So once you're at the floor, you get all that growth. And where we are now, we get the reduction factors, which is meant to level your taxes so that property owners don't have to pay schools based on reappraisal. Once you get to 20 mils, you get growth on all of that. But now they're talking about recomputing the way, what counts towards the 20 mils, what doesn't count towards the 20 mils. And if you have more than 30% in cash, this language would allow a county auditor to actually reduce you below the 20 mils for that year to make sure your cash is at 30%. And then the next year, on my assumption from reading the brief amount of language that we've been able to see, the next year then you would go back up, assuming you don't have a 30% reserve that year, above a 30% reserve. So they would be able to increase your millage back up to what it was supposed to be. So wild swings in local property taxes, regardless of reappraisal, is what I'm seeing or hearing or reading, so.
You know, it seems like they could avoid all these different machinations or whatever if they just fixed the funding plan so it's not so reliant on property taxes, but that's just my own personal opinion, but.
Well, they also, I don't know if you read that part, they got rid of any funding formula in the bill. And so it basically just says you got what you got last year. And there's no formula for that. It's just, here's your money.
Not taking in consideration inflation, Alex.
Or enrollment,
anything.
Or
or
any enrollments, yeah.
any
Social economic,
thing. Changes in
Outcomes,
special
changes.
ed students, changes in
Insurance.
special ed severity.
And it's all based on 2022.
Well, this year, what they're saying, the numbers look like is if you got $38 million in FY '25, you're gonna get 38 million plus like some minuscule increase, so that no school district will actually get less from the state than they got this year. But then they're gonna make you give it back to the county,
Yeah.
so.
Thank you. Thank you. We kind of hijacked your legislative report.
Oh, no, that's okay. That
This
was,
is an important discussion to have.
Yeah.
It's important to share with the public. Every chance we get, speak to this.
Yes. Yeah.
Anything else?
that was the major highlight. They've made some other changes, proposed in there about, like exemptions to permit certain licensed teachers to teach computer science without an actual computer science specific license. Eliminating a law requiring licensed schools counselors to complete a mandatory training program on building, construction, trades, career pathways. There's some things about different grants and whatnot. But yeah, that was the big item, the funding issues.
It's pretty big.
And I am really grateful that we were able to talk about it, and that Mrs. Lee was here to explain in detail what I didn't understand.
Thank you. Thank you. Butler Tech. So I sent an email to the administrative team here and to the board members recognizing the kind of end-of-year showcases that happen every year, and those typically are in conjunction with the all boards meeting, which is happening on May 1st. We'll have our own meeting and won't be able to attend. But there's at least one other school in the same boat, so they've done showcases on 2 different nights. So we could attend on April 24th from 4 to 8 at the D. Russell Lee campus, as well as the other campuses, each campus, Bioscience Center, Natural Science Center, School of the Arts. They'll all be having showcases at their campus. If you'd like to attend those, you're more than welcome. They just ask that you RSVP your attendance. Student achievement, Mrs. Birding.
So we've acquired a lot of liquid from the sky recently. And so actually a project that the zoo works with is called the Rain Barrel Art Project. And so they take artists from the community and they decorate rain barrels that are then displayed at the Cincinnati Zoo. And then you bid on the rain barrels to take to your own properties, whether it's your own home property or your business properties, so that you can acquire these rain barrels that are not an eyesore. But then you're collecting all the rain that we had recently. Instead of us having all this storm wash, you have a fresh source of water for your garden or all kinds of things. So we had 2 students that were picked to actually decorate 2 rain barrels. So I just want to kind of highlight junior Madison Baker and freshman Cheryl Heckel for their selection to be able to participate in this project. And so their rain barrels are currently at the Cincinnati Zoo, being auctioned until April 25th. And so I think that's just really great that it creates something beautiful out of something that wasn't before. It's giving them an outlet and also educating people on how to better in our environment, because, there's a lot of things that we could do, and a rain barrel is a very, very simple thing.
Absolutely. Thank you. Mr. Clark, Parks and Recreation.
And speaking of a lot of water, once the rain stops, the Aquatic Center opens up on May 24th at noon. The Groovin' on the Green concerts are out. There are 10 concerts already scheduled, so you can go to the Facebook page to note all those, May 29th, June 12th, June 26th, and so on. Let's see, Easter egg. Hoppin' Easter egg hunt is Saturday, April 12th, and that is at Village Green. So you can go hunt Easter eggs with your kids. We have a week of bird watching, Saturday, May 10th, at Harbin Park from 10 to 11. You ever hunted fireflies, Brian?
I have not.
And even when he was a little lad,
Lightning-
put him in a
lightning
jar and
Hunted
Mr.
them?
Huss.
I don't know.
you ever caught fireflies before?
I've done that.
Okay.
Okay, now I feel better. Well, you can do it again.
Okay, better.
8:30, 9:30, Harbin Park on June 20th. That's way out there. And then the Harbin Park playground, you can go play on that. It's open. And then the splash pad, they'll have a grand opening for that coming up probably sometime in May. A date has not been set yet, but that will be coming very soon as well.
So Harbin's almost completely done?
Almost done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
That's all I got.
Thank you. Planning Commission, Mr. Smith.
Yes, they had a meeting last night. It was very brief, and there were no items discussed that would be of interest to the board. That's your update.
Thank you.